Тенденцию последних десятилетий, а весна 2020 стала самой теплой за историю наблюдений, насчитывающей уже более 100 лет, говорится в отчете Роскомнадзора. В некоторых районах российской Арктики сейчас на несколько градусов теплее, чем всего несколько лет назад. Потепление наиболее заметно на ряде территорий Севера Сибири, особенно в районе Таймыра и Ямала. Судя по метеорологической карте, превышение средней температуры на побережье Таймыра достигало 7 градусов.
Well, hi, this is Sandy Shellis with Environmental Coffee House, and today Jennifer and I have a wonderful guest, Thomas Nilsen, who is the editor of the Barents Observer, which is a online resource that we use constantly. Those of you that follow our channel, you know we absolutely love this resource. So, Jennifer, would you like to take it from here?
Thomas, it is such a very big pleasure to have you here on Environmental Coffee House today. Thanks so much for making time. I am so looking forward to our conversation. It's going to be a very fruitful talk, and some of the things that we're going to be talking about with you are climate change in the Arctic, security in the Arctic, resource development in the Arctic, Russian military buildup, and energy development. So with that, Thomas, welcome to Environmental Coffee House.
Welcome.
It's an honor to be talking to you today. And the topics you just highlighted is part of our daily life here in journalism of the High North, in the border areas between the Arctic, Norway, Russia, and so on. So yeah, I'm ready. Nice to meet you.
Well, why don't you,
so
tell
much.
us a little bit about where you are, your location, and at this time of year, what the weather's like, and give us a feel for you.
Wow,
Barents.
yeah. The Barents Observer is an online newspaper publishing in English for an international audience. And everything we do publish in English is also translated to Russian. So, but we are based on the Norwegian side of the border, in the northernmost part of Norway, in a small town called Kirkenes. And from our newsroom, it is a 10-minute drive to the border to Russia. And we are 5 minutes walk from the shore to the Barents Sea. And I also have the my neighboring country, Finland, 30 minutes drive directly to the west. So we are in the borderland, way inside the Arctic Circle in northernmost Norway. So, well, it's mid-April when we do this recording, and it's still plenty of opportunities to go skiing outside. It's still winter here, but the sun is getting higher and higher on the skies, and there's only a few hours of darkness in the middle of the night. So soon we will have the midnight sun, but still winter.
Oh, how interesting. And you live so far north Norway and so close to the Russian border. And I have gathered from other podcasts that I've listened to that one of the roles of Norway, either formally or probably more informally, and the role of is a little bit watching what's going on, being kind of like a little bit of a watchdog over the Russian situation in the Arctic. Is that also kind of your feeling?
Well, Norway is a very small country. We are 5 million people, and that's approximately the same as a few blocks in Moscow. So being a very small country to such a big neighbor, Russia is by geography is the biggest nation in the world. We are watching across the border, trying to figure out what and how we can build good neighboring relations. And in that picture, journalism plays a very important role. And for us in the Barents Observer, we consider ourselves to be a kind of civilian radar that are surveilling all over the Arctic, and that includes Russia and what's happening up here, on good and on bad. Of course, our job as journalists is to stay focused on the positive side, but we can't avoid also taking a closer look into troubling developments that especially we have seen over the last few years in regards to climate changes and in regards to the general security picture up here in the north. But that said, the hope is, of course, that we can stay friendly neighbors up here in the north.
One would hope so, with all that's going on, especially with the building of the military border arms race, you'd say, up there in Russia. Is that something we'd like to start with?
Yeah, I think that is a very good start, and especially today when we do this recording, because it is less than 60 to 70 miles from the office of the Barents Observer. Today I have a very special visit guest, and that is Russia's Minister of Defense. He is visiting the home base of the Russian Northern Fleet's ballistic missile submarines. And that tells us the seriousness of the region and how much focus Russia have on its military Northern Fleet, which they are giving high priority with new vessels, new weapon systems, and so on. So, but we are not allowed to travel there, both because that is inside the Russian military area. And also right now, like the rest of the world, the borders are closed due to the pandemic. So we are still sitting and waiting for the latest news and photos and videos from Russian journalists that are following his visit up to the high north.
What do you think they want to accomplish with this visit?
Well, analyzing Russia's military buildup in the north is not an easy task. Russia is a very, very big country, and there are many news headlines around the world that says that Russia's military buildup in the Arctic is because of the Arctic, and because Russia have huge interest in oil and gas development and in shipping, and that new areas are opening up as the ice melts in the Arctic Ocean. But we have also to remember that the Kola Peninsula, that are Russia's northern areas bordering to Norway here, that is the European part of Russia's only access to open waters and the North Atlantic. So the ballistic missile submarines and the huge, powerful Northern Fleet, they are not here because of the Arctic. They are here because this is the area where Russia can sail out to the North Atlantic and play a role with the United States, with Europe, and with international geopolitical situations. So that is important to keep in mind. That said, of course, Russia is also re-enforcing its former Cold War bases that are located on Arctic archipelagos like the Novaya Zemlya, where Russia or the Soviet Union did the nuclear testing in the Soviet period, and at Franz Josef Land, which is up in the high Arctic. It's not always easy to understand why they put so much money into building those Arctic military bases. I think they pretty well know that Norway, that NATO, that the United States doesn't have any plans to invade those areas and so on. But Arctic is Russia's proud. They have the submarine bases, important for them strategically, and that also make them focus a lot of the developments up here. And then also important to keep in mind when talking about Russia and the Arctic and military is that Russia currently have a president that is very focused on Arctic. He loves the Arctic. He goes there. He travels up there. He likes to take photo of himself together with polar bears. And he is also a very big fan of the Navy and of submarines and so on. And, well, like it or not, but Vladimir Putin is commander-in-chief, and he decides most of what is going on in Russia today.
Yes, Thomas, it's ironic, isn't it, that climate change and the melting of the Arctic and the thawing of the permafrost and all of that going on in the Arctic all over the world, but in the Arctic in particular, that in itself is what's giving Russia all these additional opportunities to do the energy development with the gas and all of their businesses up there, and also to expand their military. They're going to have more access for longer periods of time as the Arctic warms. It's a bit of an ironic situation, isn't it?
Absolutely, you're perfectly right. And to make it even more ironic is that the biggest plans for Russia in the Arctic on the melting permafrost is further extraction of petroleum products like oil and natural gas. And for one or another reason, Russia still believes that their future economy is going to gain much from selling oil and gas on the world market. All through, the Arctic is probably the most expensive place to drill for oil. So, but the biggest industrial developments in the Russian Arctic now are all devoted to oil and gas developments. And this winter, we are soon coming to an end. That is actually the first winter ever where Russia have had year-round sailings with carriers of liquid natural gas all along its northern coast of Siberia to the markets in Asia and in Europe. But as we all know, that Europe is now trying to turn away from natural gas and more into renewables, wind power, hydropower, sun power, and energy savings, and so on. So the prices of liquid natural gas in Europe isn't very high. So, but Russia invests heavily into this, and they hope that they will secure the country's economy for the future in that. Personally, I'm more skeptical to the future of such economical plans.
Oh, so are we. And the Russian scientists who have worked with other scientists worldwide know that this is a losing proposition. They know this, but they still want to push on because of why will they push on? Vladimir Putin's desire. Is he in denial that there is a huge problem with climate change, that there is a problem with the Arctic melting?
No, I don't think Vladimir Putin or the Russian government are denying climate changes. But instead of fighting climate changes and trying to reduce emissions of carbon dioxide or methane from the tundra, they are more talking about how to adapt to climate changes. And adapting to climate change is more shipping in the Arctic Ocean as the ice melts and as it is actually possible to sail with the vessels even midwinter. And adapting to climate changes, that means that they will could have the options of developing even more industry in the high north. So unfortunately, I have to say that Russia, unlike many other countries, they think that they can gain, that they could develop their own economy in the current climate change situation that we are facing.
Wow. As the permafrost thaws and as infrastructure becomes more unstable, it's also another ironic thing. The more that the seaways are open for Russia through the Kara Sea, the Laptev Sea, the East Siberian Sea, which seems to thaw out a lot quicker than the rest of the Arctic Ocean, typically in any given year. At the very same time, the infrastructure is experiencing difficulties, like, as we know, in the Nornickel plant in Norilsk, that large diesel tanker caved due to, as they think, permafrost thaw. And I was wondering if you could speak to us a little bit about that dichotomy between the thawing permafrost and the degradation of infrastructure and the increasing access to the seaways on the other side for Russia in particular.
Yeah, this is a big problem, and it's increasing year by year. What made world headlines last year was, as you mentioned, this huge oil tank that collapsed on the Siberian tundra outside the town of Norilsk. But that was the one who made it to the news. We have also seen many other examples of infrastructure that are actually collapsing as the permafrost melts. I have heard stories about pipelines that are recently built that are already experiencing cracks. And with especially the new pipelines that Russia are building towards China, they are in areas where the permafrost is melting more than anywhere else. Up from the northern coast of Siberia to the Laptev Sea, to the Kara Sea, and in the Ob Bay, and so on. One thing is that the permafrost melts, but also the summer season is growing in both in the springtime and in the autumn. And that means more waves from the Arctic Ocean that are speeding up the corrosion of the coast itself. So you have a double effect here. You have both that the permafrost is melting, but also that there are coming more waves as there is no ice more on the water, which are destroying coastal infrastructure. And we have also seen examples of methane explosions, especially on the Yamal Peninsula, which is 90% of Russia's natural gas production area. Because this permafrost, when that melts away, the methane underneath is coming to the surface and are destroying this area. So if it was my money, I would not have invested in developing Arctic natural gas fields or pipelines in those areas. I think for insurance companies and so on, this should be a really, really big, troublesome scenario that we are most likely just starting to see the beginning of.
Good point. You know, the big insurers that they're going to lose in so many ways. I have a question then about pipelines. I would imagine the people in Russia don't do what we do in the United States and protest against these pipelines when they see that there are going to be problems. Do they understand? Do you think the population understands the issues with these pipelines?
This is a question that we in the Barents Observer, as a news online, are writing quite much about. Yes, people living in the areas, they are worried. They can see that pipelines are cracking up and oil are leaking out and polluting their rivers where they, their parents, their grandparents have been fishing for ages. So they are absolutely worried about it. But we also have to keep in mind that the northern part of Russia is very little populated. There are huge distances, and many of those new oil fields and the new natural gas fields, they are built in areas where there ain't any villages or local people. Yes, there are some indigenous peoples groups up in the north, and we have made many stories writing about their worry for the future as these oil and gas developments are coming. But this is not easy, and many of those who have protests, like environmental groups, local environmental non-governmental organizations, NGOs, they have been shut down or harassed by authorities or taken to court by these big oil companies. So there ain't much critical voices that are surfacing to the media or to public protests and so on. But that doesn't mean that people are not worried. The people are worried, but people are more worried about the harassment they face from authorities. And that also goes for journalism. Newspapers or journalists that have been covering these areas, they are silent by authorities.
Wow. Well, the Barents Observer is really a beacon of light in the darkness then. And, you know, hats off to you guys for doing such amazing work. And it's fortunate that because you're a Norwegian outfit, you do have the latitude and the freedom to speak truth to power when others cannot. So that is a hugely important role.
Well,
but we are also facing challenges. Yes, we try to. I have painted on the wall behind me "Freedom to Write," which is the basic line for us in the Barents Observer. But you know that the Barents Observer, we are banned in Russia. So we are an online newspaper, and if you go to an internet cafe in Moscow or up in Norilsk and write in our web address, you will get a denial. You can't read us unless you are using a virtual private network or a VPN platform accessing through Russia's censorship wall. And many people are doing that. We see especially young people. They are using the VPN to access the Barents Observer. But for general readers, it is difficult to read us. And it's no secret at all. The main reason why Russian authorities are banning the Barents Observer is because we are publishing in Russian language. So we are the only newspaper in the Nordic countries, that means Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, that are translating all our articles into Russian. And that has taken us into big trouble, but we never give up. So what we have done now in order to circle around Russia's censorship wall is that we are putting all our news online in a podcast. So everyone that are subscribing to Apple Podcast or to SoundCloud or to Spotify or whatever, they can listen to our news. And it's not for Russia or Kremlin to just stop Spotify. They can't do that.
Oh, that's awesome. I do have a question that popped up on the VPN for Russian citizens. What is the penalty? Is there a penalty? Or is VPN something people have to sneak, or is it again more global?
VPN is not banned in Russia. Russia is not like China. They can't stop everything. They are trying to put more pressure on providers or internet providers in Russia to stop VPN usage also, but there is no penalty for using the VPN. So for now, this is a good way. But it's especially young people that are using it. But that said, nobody knows about tomorrow morning. Over the last few weeks, Russia have tried to put a ban on Twitter. They have made a ban on LinkedIn, which is now not allowed to use in Russia. And they are doing many efforts to trying to limit the freedom of the internet. And Russia's former prime minister, Dmitry Medvedev, he was out speaking quite recently, saying that by the end of the day, if Russia wants, they can make a kind of unique Russian internet. That meaning that they will do the same as China, trying to cut off the rest of the world and control absolutely all internet traffic across the borders. But for now, it's not. We are not there yet. But the situation doesn't look very good for now. But we will try to keep the Barents Observer running for our Russian readers as long as we can.
We will support you, but we don't know if anybody knows who we are in Russia, but we sure have a kinship with the country. And given the amount of land the Arctic Russia has for the Arctic, we can only hope for a turnaround in the political waves there. But again, that's a difficult achievement now, because of so many countries are moving towards authoritarianism, or the attraction for authoritarianism. Do you have a comment on that, Thomas?
It is very, very difficult to predict the future in a country that, Russians themselves say that they are the only country in the world that also have an unpredictable history. So trying to predict the future of Russia is very, I will probably be wrong if I try to do that. But I want to say that when I traveled to Russia the first time, when I was a teenager, at that time the name of the country was Soviet Union, and it was in 1989. I had absolutely no idea, and I didn't meet one single person at that time who was talking about the breakup of the Soviet Union. And 2 years after, that was the fact. So we always have to remember that Russia is a country that can change quite soon and quite dramatically. So I will not rule out a more friendly and a more democratic development in Russia in the times to come. But it seems unlikely right now.
I have a question around the Yamal Peninsula and its climate change in the Arctic, coupled with resource development. You mentioned that the oil and gas buildup in the Yamal Peninsula has been dramatic. But of course, that's also the area of the very dramatic methane craters that we've been hearing about since around 2014, where there's a huge thawing of the permafrost and a methane buildup and an eventual blowout, leading to these big giant craters. And is that where a lot of the Russian oil and gas build up and infrastructure development has been in the Yamal Peninsula?
The Yamal Peninsula accounts for 90% of Russia's natural gas production. It has always been very important, and it has been feeding the pipelines with natural gas to central Russia, the big cities of Moscow, St. Petersburg, and so on, but also the pipelines going through Ukraine for the European market, and the gas pipelines they are building now, the so-called Nord Stream, that is on the seafloor out from Viborg and through the Baltics and down to south to Germany. So the Yamal Peninsula is very, very important in the natural gas production of Russia. Also, and that is a factory that opened a few years ago. That is the Yamal LNG, which is the production of liquid natural gas, taking gas and cooling it down to very, very cold temperatures so it gets liquid, so they could transport it on big tankers to the markets, especially in Asia. They have been selling quite much liquid natural gas the last 2-3 years to China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and so on. And that is a growing business. So it will be important both for the traditional pipeline gas supply to Russia and Europe, but also they are gaining more access to bigger markets, in the growing markets in Asia.
There's another new fuel source, green hydrogen, and I have heard, and I was wondering if you could confirm, is Russia involved in the production of green hydrogen, and that would be using natural gas as a source fuel, and then supposedly doing carbon sequestration, which I can't imagine that the Russians would be even interested in, and then shipping the green hydrogen production to China? Is that something that is also happening?
Yes, that is absolutely so. And it is especially the private natural gas companies like Novatek that are looking into it. So all through Kremlin and Moscow are not very interested in solving the climate change challenges of the world. They, of course, understand business, they understand money, and the buyers of the natural gas, they are looking for better energy solutions for the future, and producing hydrogen is one option, as the market for hydrogen in Europe, in the United States, and especially in Asia, are expected to grow. So, but right now there ain't any real projects under development, but they are studying it, and I think they will absolutely keep the door open to see how natural gas with carbon capture can be used to produce hydrogen for export. That is most likely a growing business worldwide in the future.
Thomas, another thing I was interested in knowing more about was the increase of methane in the Arctic due to the thawing of both the permafrost and the subsea permafrost in the Laptev Sea and East Siberian Sea. Do you see that there is an increase of the gas coming out of the ocean and the permafrost as well? And do you report on this?
I'm not an expert on the levels of methane coming out in the atmosphere. So we do report about what we read from others. about it. But I think the big fear now is that there will be a self-sustained development, that the increased temperatures in the Arctic will trigger even more thaw of the permafrost, and by that it will be even more releases, and maybe you'll get a self-sustained climate change and increase in temperatures on planet Earth, whatever humans are doing to reduce emissions of carbon dioxide. But I think this is something that scientists and Arctic researchers are having a very high focus on, and are doing studies on the Russian tundra as well as in other parts of the circumpolar Arctic, on Norway's Svalbard archipelago, and Greenland, in Alaska, North Slope areas where you have permafrost in Alaska, and the northern part of Canada. It's frightening scenarios that are maybe coming up.
Does Norway have plans for lessening their reliance on fossil fuels and drilling? I know that Norway has been very profitable in that arena, and it's helped their green ideals in the country. But what do you see as the future for Norway?
Norway is a country that have got extremely rich from the income of drilling for oil and gas, and or to put it in other words, Norway has come extremely rich by triggering more climate changes on the planet. I sometimes used to say that we as Norwegians, we are Petroholics. We know that this is bad, but we can't avoid doing it. We continue because our economy is so much dependent on the income from oil and gas, the welfare system of Norway, the pensions of the future generations are built on drilling for oil. So the Norwegian government has are frequently licensing more areas further and further north for oil companies that they want to give access to drill. That said, I think we are into a period of change right now. I think that especially the oil companies themselves, they see that there ain't much oil underneath the sea bottom of the Barents Sea, which is the northernmost offshore areas for Norway to drill for oil. And it is so expensive also to drill in this area. Norway is a highly expensive country. So I think business itself will not be that eager to apply for new licenses in the northernmost areas. And of course, Norway also understand that the world's demand for petroleum is decreasing with more and more electric vehicles coming out on the roads, more and more houses and office buildings with sunroofs, and more wind power providing clean energy. So there is a big debate now in Norway, and that is very cool to watch. And we report a lot about it on how to use the technology that Norway developed for offshore oil drilling to more provide for offshore windmills in the future to produce clean energy. But we will see. This for now, Norway is a country of petroholics.
Petroholics.
It's a word I just invented. So,
I love it.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I will definitely attribute that to you, Thomas. Jen?
Well, I was wondering about the methane craters in the Yamal Peninsula. I believe that you guys first reported these methane craters in probably about 2014 is the first time I remember them coming up. Have you noticed an increase of these explosive methane craters up in the Yamal Peninsula?
There has been more methane craters or craters that are coming because of methane explosions. We don't have access to those areas, so we can't afford to travel there ourselves. But journalists that we speak to in Siberia that are flying out with the Russian scientists, they definitely confirm that there are more and more of those craters from every year. That said, we have to remember that the Russian Arctic is a very, very big area with very, very long distances. So most likely the majority of these craters are not discovered. It is mainly the craters that are on the Yamal Peninsula close to human activity, where the oil company to really travel out and try to find out the scoop of this. We as journalists, we are doing that, trying to find the good stories, not trying to make all the headlines showing like doomsday is coming tomorrow, because there is of course a lot of opportunities to solve many of the climate change issues that we are facing. And it's cool. It's very great to see the United States of America coming back to the Paris Agreement, to be around the same table as the Europeans, and saying that, well, we're going to find solutions, because I'm not, in many ways I'm a technology optimist. That I really hope that there are many technologies that can help us reduce our dependence on oil and gas. And Norway is a small country, so that is not an example of how it is in the rest of the world. But in Norway now, half of every new sold cars are pure battery-powered electric vehicles. And that means it shows that it is possible to turn around the transport sector from running on low efficient petrol to more energy battery powered cars powered by clean energy produced by wind, sun, hydropower, geothermal, and so on. So that's cool. And I saw now from your country that Joe Biden has announced that all federal vehicles in the United States over time also is going to be battery-powered vehicles. So that's cool. It's cool for global climate, and it's cool for all those children that are growing up in big cities with the big pollution problems from petrol-powered vehicles.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I have a
It is
question
cool.
about the green energy for Norway. Where does Norway source lithium and the things needed for this revolution of green?
Norway doesn't have any car brands that are produced in Norway. So we buy cars from the United States, from Europe, from China. But what Norway is doing right now is that they are putting a lot of effort into producing batteries for electric vehicles, and not only cars, but also for ferries, fishing boats. The air companies in Norway are actually already talking about buying small electric planes for all the small airports around in Norway. And the metals that are needed for producing batteries, they are very much in the Scandinavian countries and in neighboring Russia. That is nickel, it's copper, and also some lithium. So one of the big tasks for the future is that we don't replace the dirty oil industry with dirty mining industry. So they have to develop a kind of best available technologies for the new mining of especially nickel and copper. But I have a feeling by seeing what the car companies like Tesla or Volkswagen or others are saying, that their customers want green technology, and then they can't buy nickel that is produced from a dirty factory or from a dirty mine. So I think the mining companies and the metallurgical industry will do their utmost in a competition to be the first to provide as clean mining products as possible. And in the long run, of course, recycling is the core answer to this question. But meanwhile, clean mining technology is the goal. Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It has its self-rule system and their own elected parliament, but officially Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark.
They were just having elections.
They had elections, and one of the big questions in the election was how Greenland will tackle international mining companies that want to have access to rare earth metals, but also to minerals, or to for instance, uranium, which many locals in Greenland are very, very skeptical to. So the result of the election was a change of local government in Greenland, in a government that are actually consisting of people very skeptical to opening up for Chinese mining companies or other big money to move in and grab the natural resources.
And they should be. They should be skeptical. They should be hugely skeptical. I mean, Donald Trump offered to buy Greenland. I mean,
on a humorous note, I mean, what was your response when the president of the United States offered to just buy Greenland? I mean, what could you possibly have thought about that?
First, I thought it was a joke.
Right.
But then when Donald Trump immediately after Denmark said that Greenland is not for sale, he cancelled his state visit to Denmark. And first then I understood that it was not a joke. But I'm a journalist. I'm not a diplomat, so I can say it quite directly. I think the world and international relations will benefit quite much from Donald Trump moving out of Pennsylvania Avenue 1600, out of the White House. I think Donald Trump was not necessarily a big supporter of international cooperation, and international cooperation is the only way for the world to move forward.
Absolutely.
But as I said, I'm not a diplomat.
Well, you sound quite rational, and you're a great journalist, and you're a great editor. And when we were talking earlier, we were talking about geopolitical things like the United States, and everybody during the Trump administration all over the world was holding their breath, just waiting for this to stop, this insanity. And we're still waiting for a lot of it to stop in the United States.
But I think also it's quite important to have respect for people's will. And Donald Trump was he was elected by the American people. Good that the presidential period was a kind of a short 4-year term.
It was very long for us. We felt like it was very long, but
it was a long, bad dream.
Yeah, but it is a lot of people, and that, in your estimation, during that 4 years, what did the rest of the world think of the United States and what was happening, from a Nordic point of view?
Yeah, I can't talk on behalf of the rest of the world. I'm quite sure that there are many people in Kremlin, in Moscow, around President Vladimir Putin, who was very satisfied with Donald Trump and his behavior on the international stage. But talking for the Nordic countries, I think the majority over here is quite glad to see that the United States is back in the Paris Agreement, that we are back on track talking trade agreements across the Atlantics, and that we have a president that consider Europe and democracies over here to be partners instead of competitors. Yeah, hopefully there will be much better normalcy in the relations across the Atlantic. And that is very important these days with increased geopolitical tensions between China on one side, Russia on the other, Europe and the United States. And I think people are kind of happy with not having yet another 4 years with Donald Trump's chaos regime.
Thank you. We're happy to hear that. And there's a lot of political strife in the United States, but there's a lot of political strife everywhere. Nobody agrees with anything, but it is good to hear from people around the world that are relieved that we are not sliding towards an authoritarian future yet. Well, this has been extremely helpful, Thomas. We appreciate so much you being with us on Environmental Coffee House. I'm going to hand it over to Jen to end our conversation. Jen?
Thomas, we are so honored that you've spent this time with us today. It's been an enlightening and educational conversation, and if at all possible, it would be wonderful to be able to talk with you at some time in the future.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and it's very, very nice to be on the show with you, Jennifer and Sandy. The Barents Observer is always here. We are free available. Everyone can subscribe our newsletter for free of charge, and we will continue, and I can promise that we will continue to provide very good journalism from the Arctic, about the Arctic, today and tomorrow. And I would, of course, love to talk more with you on other topics later on. One thing is for sure, tomorrow will be interesting.
And we are looking forward to that for sure. Thank you so much again. And as we usually end, peace.
Great.